Nice to meet you.
Max.
Team Yankee, the judges are ready to hear your solution. You will have 20 minutes to present to the judges. You will be given a warning when 5 and 2 minutes remain. After 20 minutes, the presentation will be stopped immediately. No information will be considered once the time has lapsed. Following the presentation, there will be a 10-minute question and answer. You will be given a warning when 2 minutes remain. The question and answer will be stopped after 10 minutes and no information will be considered after. You may begin when you're ready.
Okay, hello, we're Team Yankee and we went through the analysis of Edward Jones. So my name is Salome.
I'm Carla.
I'm Max.
And I'm Cedric.
So Carla will kick us off and begin explaining the thought process that we went through as we analyzed the case.
Thank you, Salome. So Edward Jones is a financial advisory company, and they're known for their excellent client relationships. And this can be really seen because their managing partner said the following: "We feel like the relationship that the financial advisor delivers delivers on the way we compete." So Jim Weddle expresses the way that Edward Jones really values client relationships in this statement. So the current situation in the market is that there's a huge transfer of wealth going on from the baby boomer generation to millennials. There's about $30 trillion being transferred. In addition to that, the demographics of the United States are greatly changing. As we read in the case and as we researched on our own, there's a rising number of Asian Americans in the United States, along with a rising amount of Hispanics in the United States. But despite that, we decided we would focus our analysis mostly on millennials, who are a very powerful group at the moment, because of the fact that millennials are really influencing the financial advisory industry at the moment. I'm now going to hand over to Cedric, who's going to talk about some of the challenges that Edward Jones is currently facing.
Thank you so much, Carla. Currently, there are so many challenges the whole industry in general is facing. And of course, Edward Jones is facing those similar issues. One is being the way, the attitudes different people, different generations have towards investing. When you look at the millennials that we are going to be talking about today, they are more media savvy. They want to interact with their gadgets to make decisions. They want more control over what decisions are made over their investments. So this is a new approach they have towards investing compared to the previous generation, which is more they want that relationship between the financial advisor and themselves. So we see that as a challenge, and today we're here to propose a solution on how we can break through that particular challenge of how to meet or how to prepare ourselves, how Edward Jones can prepare themselves better for that generation to be able to mature written to start investing their wealth. Another challenge that the industry is facing, and Edward Jones as well, is that some of the people in the industry have these online platforms that are millennial friendly. The way a millennial wants to interact with their finances. Some of them have positioned themselves to do that. And when it comes to Edward Jones, we see that, for instance, if you want to become a client, if you want to start interacting with Edward Jones services, you have to make a phone call. You can't just jump on the newsletter or like on the email list right away, while other competitors have that system already in place. And we see that as a challenge, and some of the solutions we're going to be providing today will help us get to that. One thing that really stood out for us, we tried to use some of the mobile application by Edward Jones. For the logins, you still need to put in the user ID and your password. For others, it's just your touch ID. That's how they are logging into their application, which we think is something that is more appealing to millennials, and we think that it's something we're going to find a way to get at. And the question we're going to be trying to give solutions for: how can you attract? How can we first identify, then attract, then engage, then retain and solve properly that millennial group that we are trying to prepare. So my colleagues, we're going to be really finding solutions, and I will pass to Max to give you the first solution.
Thank you, Cedric. So the way we approached this problem, we had a two-pronged solution. So the first part of that solution, we were looking at an acquisition. So we looked at various companies that millennials engage with frequently that are in the investing and micro-investing space. And we came up with this app called Acorns. Essentially, it's a micro-investing platform where when you buy, for example, a cup of coffee that costs $2.60, your purchase is rounded up 40 cents, and those 40 cents are moved to your saving and investing account. Acorns does that investing automatically for you, and this is in line with statistics that we found that millennials would rather, for example, have $5 saved every day than have $150 put aside at one time, even though at the end of a month, that comes out to the same amount. So they would rather have those incremental small amounts add up over time. So that's why we were looking at Acorns. Another reason we were looking at Acorns was because they have a relatively high user base. So they have 1.5 million users with about 75 million in assets under management currently. And 75% of the users are 18 to 34 years old, which is the generation that Edward Jones is trying to target in the future. The final part of that was we wanted to integrate Acorn's social media pages, and once we start on branding, for example, after the acquisition, it would become something like Acorns by Edward Jones, which builds the brand recognition. And looking at, again, Acorns as a company, they have a relatively low assets under management currently, but compared to similar platforms like Betterment, Weatherfront, Personal Capital. But the reason we picked Acorns was because we were looking at valuations of these companies and of other companies as well. And Acorns is one company which makes financial sense to acquire them, and they're a lot cheaper as a result of the low assets under management, while they're still growing significantly. Looking at the financial implications, so in September 2016, when they did their last round of fundraising, they were valued around $370 million. And we made an assumption that the acquisition cost today would probably go around $600 million. And in that situation, we were looking at, how can we tackle the challenge of funding that amount? So we went through Edward Jones' balance sheet and found that, cash available, cash and cash equivalents are currently around $1 billion. And that debt is relatively low compared to other competitors like Charles Schwab. There's almost no long-term debt on the balance sheet, while there are secured credit facilities, so that credit is available. So we decided to do 75% funding from cash, so $400 million, and then $200 million of the $290 million credit facility available as debt. And looking at some of the benefits and limitations of acquiring a platform like Acorns and integrating it into Edward Jones. The main one is that you would get access to all of these millennials that use this platform, and this is a way that has already proven that millennials engage with this and use it frequently. It's automatically connected to the credit and debit cards. You can connect as many cards as you want, so it goes through all of your purchases. Secondly, the massive amount of data that Edward Jones would get as a result of this. They would know how much people are spending, what they're spending on, and in the long term, that can lead to, when this generation matures and starts thinking about, we might need a financial advisor, we have a significant net worth or significant assets that we want to use, that can mature to a level of service where a financial advisor might be appropriate. And at that time, you have, where the person is located, their zip code, you can have a personal advisor, a financial advisor in that area, reach out to specific clients that, might be interested in that. You can look at their age, you can look at their purchases, and so on. Some of the limitations we obviously had to consider were incorporating a fintech company, essentially a startup, into the traditional culture of Edward Jones. And that's why we considered that at the beginning we should leave Acorns as a part of the brand of Edward Jones, but still its own company. Another limitation we were looking at was the conversion. So it's the plan is to convert those Acorn users in the future to Edward Jones clients, but obviously it's not a simple process, and there could be complications in terms of finding and reaching out to the right people to make those conversions. So we would have to look at what would the conversion rate be in the future. And finally, obviously, the financial cost of acquiring Acorns, $600 million, obviously not just a little amount of money, so that has to be considered as well. And now I'm going to pass over to Salome to tell you about the second prong of our solution.
Wow, so you've already heard about Acorns by Edward Jones. Well, I'm going to further elaborate on this. So imagine a platform, a social media platform that now has access to a younger demographic. Now, Acorns already has a couple of users that are within the young demographic that we're looking at. And in addition, they're already engaged, their users are very hip, they love fun things, and so this is a customer base that we're already tapping into. And Facebook allows you to have analytics on these people, so you can have data and information on their behavior. Our idea was to have a campaign that would allow young people who are interested in funding or financing to have a financial literacy program, so that people know that, okay, Acorns by Edward Jones is my financial literacy program. And in addition, we wanted to integrate an artificial intelligence robot, so that if you have any questions, you could actually ask through the Facebook page. You can already see that's a screenshot of how AI chatbot would look like. It would say, thanks for connecting with us, and you can just ask a simple question. And if it's too complex, then the bot might not be able to answer, and it will be able to tell you that. I've used the Bank of America bot app, and as much as the lady is very sassy, it's pretty cool to use because she responds to you as much as she can. In addition, we also looked at having a paid Facebook campaign, and so we're looking at acquiring about 5 million audience, and the estimate is around 12,000 impressions, so people engage with it around 12,000 times. And we found these statistics from a simulation that was done from May 1st to May 31st, and it's just a month of paying $6,000, but you get you get an audience of about 5 million. And we've all done Facebook presentations, we've all done Facebook marketing campaigns in the past before, and we realized that Facebook can target your ads. So you can have targeted ads to whatever demographic that you're looking at. The reason we didn't focus too much on demographics is because we realized that you could leverage the Facebook page to get information about your demographic, and also to deliberately reach out to your demographic. And finally, just as a play on what we're trying to say, there's a very popular fintech company called Robinhood, and they appeal to millennials. You can obviously see they have about 600 reactions to their thing, to their post, which says 99 problems, but commissions ain't one. So it clearly shows that you can make finances and financial advising a very hip and interesting platform. But obviously, with all of this, with all these great ideas, there are some limitations and benefits. So the benefit would be we would be able to appeal to diverse demographics. Right? You're looking at a Facebook population that will be much younger and much more cool. And in addition, we're not leaving out the Edward Jones Facebook page. We are revamping the Edward Jones Facebook page, but we will be appealing to a bigger audience if we use Acorns by Edward Jones as our main platform from which we attract millennials. Obviously, you acquire a younger user base, and if you incorporate an AI chatbot, that's kind of really cool. I love my Bank of America lady. I still remember her right now. And so it's very important. It also builds relationships, because now you are not only interacting, you are serving your customers, you're serving your clients, but your clients don't necessarily want to talk to someone, they just want to talk to a robot. And that value proposition has to change accordingly, because your clients are also changing. There obviously are limitations. There is a recurring monthly cost up to the start of the campaign. The $6,000 is going to be incurred per month. And as we've all realized in our Facebook campaigns, engagement of customers is very hard to get. It's very, very difficult to get people to engage in your information. And even if you do, which most of us might have, it's hard for them to convert into real customers. We don't know how they're going to convert into either Acorns users, and we cannot track how they'll be converted to Edward Jones. But because Facebook gives such a comprehensive way of analyzing data, you can figure out some trends or some patterns that might help you find ways to turn those people into potential customers. I'm going to pass it over to Cedric so he can tell you about all the things we thought about before we got to this point.
Thank you so much, that was good. We didn't just come to Acorns right away. We evaluated other alternatives. One of them is Robinhood that Salome mentioned a little bit about. It's another fintech startup, but the problem with fintech, something that Robinhood, something that I've used myself, is that it is catered to a certain small demographic within the millennials. These people who are already familiar with the finance market, who knows what to buy, because Robinhood gives you that independence of selecting what stocks to buy, what to invest in. And it's not everyone who has that knowledge. I use it and almost every day. So I don't want, I don't want to advise anybody else to use it without prior knowledge. And on top of that, Robinhood is so overvalued, to be honest. It's like almost our billion. And we don't think it makes so much financial sense to acquire Robinhood because it won't even hit on that millennial segment we want to get. These people who want automation, people who want to invest without thinking about it. These are the people that we're trying to cater for. Another alternative was college debt payment software. We know currently people who are coming out of college have, on average, $30,000 US dollars in debt. And these people really have that need of how they can pay off their debt. So having a new line of products or service that help these people pay off their debt without thinking about it, without waking up in the morning and know, oh, I'm going to pay this, I'm going to pay this amount. Things happening in the background. And we see that as something we can do, but the problem with it is it's building from scratch. It's going out there and find people who already have systems in place and turn them to us so that we can help them pay off their debt. So it's something that requires a lot of financial infrastructure and involves a lot of things that does not make sense, financial sense for us. So I'm going to pass on to Salome to tell us more alternative solutions.
Well, so we also thought of creating a subsidiary of Edward Jones that is catered to millennials, maybe Edward Jones Light, but the idea is the same product offerings, the same idea, but lingo that caters to people that are in our age range. But we ruled it out because we figured that it's also similar to the college debt repayment program would require a lot of infrastructure, and if you already have an existing website and an existing business culture, it's going to take a lot to have to revolutionize it. The final point was hire a diverse workforce to anticipate future demographic trends, but we realized that Edward Jones has a strong diversity and inclusion program, and even though we know that financial advisors are declining over time, on average, we did realize too that Edward Jones has strong internship programs, so we didn't want to suggest a more diverse workforce or internship programs because those already exist. And finally, on the hiring a diverse workforce, it's also a lot more complex because if wealth is being transferred from a person of a certain income group, it does not necessarily mean that the next generation will be more diverse or any different than the current Edward Jones customer. So we didn't understand how that would, the implications of that to the actual future, how the transfer would make any difference to who's loyal to Edward Jones. And finally, I'll just pass it over to Carla to summarize and show you how we've answered all the questions.
Thank you, Solomon. So just to go over how we addressed our original question, Edward Jones can identify customers through gathering data from the Acorns app. Because the Acorns app is mostly used by millennials, we think that this could be really helpful for them in finding new users. They can attract customers by using this app, which is very user-friendly and friendly towards young people who want to learn more about finance. In addition to that, they can engage users and customers by the use of this app because it is very easy to use, and they can serve customers by improving their overall digital presence through the improvement of the Facebook pages and through the app. Finally, they'll retain customers through gaining the loyalty of millennials who want something that's younger and different, and hopefully these millennials will be interested in using advisors at Edward Jones in the future. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll take any questions that you have right now.
Thank you. I would say it was funny. You started off with a bang on what you were going to hit. All the things you said there are at the beginning were absolutely true. That the interaction with the financial advisor is the key thing. That's really what drives Edward Jones. You've got to have the engagement. You've got to have it. I think the access through Acorn is kind of interesting. That would potentially give Edward Jones certainly a look into what's going on here. I think the point you made about millennials wanting to incrementally invest 40 cents at a time, that's all good stuff. I appreciate that. The question, and so I go back to you, is a chatbot relationship really a relationship? Because Edward Jones is focused on a relationship. And how do you migrate that chatbot to a real person that part I was missing there, how you could make that happen. You mentioned the risk there, that could you retain those people? Do you have any solutions to that?
I do think that's like a bigger conversation for sure. But one thing that I think about when I think of that chatbot is the idea that the value proposition or our idea of engagement with clients is very different. So my idea of engaging with a financial advisor might be very different from like how traditionally it was viewed as engaging with a financial advisor. So when I talk to that bot, I'm like, whoa, this is so cool. Oh my God, it answers. Wow, Edward Jones is so advanced, you know, so that's kind of how I thought of Bank of America as well when I interacted with their platforms. But I think that we do run that risk, and I think one of like our big risks is how to convert those people. But I think if my teammates have anything to add.
If I may add, I think it's important nowadays to, you know, if Edward Jones wants to engage the millennial generation, they have to go and be present where millennials are. Millennials really are on social media almost all the time nowadays. So I think having that chatbot as part of like Acorn's social media page creates an engagement. It actually engages them versus, you know, you just click like or you follow a page. We don't really engage with it. The chatbot gives you an opportunity to have someone that answers you in real time. And when, you know, that in a millennial's mind, that is an engagement which creates like a brand image, especially if it's Acorns by Edward Jones, for example. So the chatbot is not necessarily there to replace the financial advisor to create that relationship, but it's there to further the initial conversation to create that brand, that strong brand image.
So, strange for example, your BOA chatbot. So do you hire millennials who are financial knowledge to be the BOA chatbot person? You wouldn't.
It's a real person, not a bot.
Well, it is. I mean, what, isn't it? Or is it?
Typically it's not.
Definitely
It's not. It's
no.
machine.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I guess you just like input algorithms and have
Right,
keywords
it
that
figures
if
keywords,
there's
right.
certain keywords. Because I would say I'm going abroad to Malaysia and it's like, Malaysia, is that correct? I'm like, oh, she heard me, yes. And then you know that it's for
So
sure.
because of time, I mean, so like your example there, like the person typed in, OMG, how do I start investing? So the robotic stuff picks up start investing and starts feeding information about that. Okay. So you made an interesting comment about in your fourth alternative about hiring, increasing diversity among new hires and financial advisors. And you said Edward Jones is already strong in that. Is that an assumption you made, or do you know that?
We went to their website and looked at their diversity and inclusion program. And I think in the case it does mention that they, there was a statistic around like, I think women in the workforce. Not entirely, but there was a statistic about like a group that's underrepresented in the workforce. So there was, so yeah, they have diversity in inclusion offices, they have support groups for people already in the organization that are from diverse backgrounds. So I saw that as an effort and I was like, well, I don't know if we should just, you know.
So I guess one thing I would throw out is, and I don't know why not, but if you go down this road with Acorn and chatbots and stuff like that, I would think even more diversity training in terms of millennial emphasis, everything from home office to financial advisors, to make it second nature so they know how to react to a millennial frame of reference or thought process. Could be helpful.
Yeah.
Oh. So I'm curious about, so the talk of doing the purchase and your recommendations, do you have a timeline for how you envision going about this? And if there's milestones to go with the timelines
So you're asking if there's a timeline and milestones within the timeline?
for implementing your recommendations?
Max, would you like to say that?
Yeah, I think for the social media campaign is really our short-term solution, because that's work that can be started on the Edward Jones page right away in terms of, you know, updating that content, making it more creative, making it so that it can apply to millennials. So I think that's the near-term goal. Like we were looking at a May campaign, for example, and we ran that simulation with a 5 million audience. And the way Facebook works, just to touch on your previous question as well, you can be so specific with targeting. You can target people, for example, you can target Hispanics living in a certain area that have housemates. and Facebook knows that there's like 3 million of those specific types in the US, so you can target them specifically. So that would be like a near-term thing. With Acorns, it would be a longer-term process, both the acquisition, because you'd have to find funding, you would have to, there would be approval process that would have to go through. So I think that would be a longer-term process. But certainly I think within a year, an acquisition of that kind could be accomplished. And then going through the rebranding and so on could take probably up to another 3 years. And then after those essentially 4 years of incorporating Acorns, rebranding it, that's when you start looking at, okay, the millennial generation has advanced, the average age is like 35 to 39 at this point. And that's the point where people start thinking about, okay, I might need a financial advisor, I might look into buying a house or making a major purchase. So that's the point where you start drawing on that data.
So I know for your future team presentations, again, other competition, we're bringing in timeline and milestones can be important for executives to hear what the time frames are.
Thank you.
And also, and I just want to say thank you for the diversity program initiatives, because it's not second nature to everyone who works in an organization to be attuned to how millennials use them.
I think, it's interesting. So, by the way, I am a diverse financial advisor here in the St. Louis market. So, to your point, Jones certainly does have several groups and mentorship programs that will support you and help you get through the initial years of your career. As I was listening to you guys, and it was rather interesting, as I told every other team, being out in the field and then kind of getting your perspective, it's hands-on, right? So, first, when you were talking about Acorn, based on your research, I'm sure you found out Edward Jones always grows organically. We do not acquire anybody, we haven't done any of that, I should say. And so early on, I'm thinking in my head, okay, fine, let's see where this goes, and I was really impressed. So the amount of thought and the amount of research you guys have done, and kind of the path that you took to explain your thought process, I appreciate. I took tons of notes to take back to our home office because I do think the information that you guys covered is something that we at least should consider. Right? One question that I do have, I know as you guys were talking about all these different platforms, and I think you have recognized that there is a need for interaction at some point here. And so I think the question is, with the robot being a part of it, I think that's certainly something that we can integrate or that we can bring on board. But what would the path be to make that happen, right? So a lot of companies out there are utilizing technology to do that, but how would you utilize our current situation with your solution of acquiring Acorn? Talk about time frame, but how would you make that happen?
I think the first step in that process would be, like I said, tackling the short-term solution, so revamping the social media sites. And I think the first step in that is approaching like a creative social media agency. They're the ones who specialize in that. They're the ones who can implement the social bots. And I think that's the first step in moving in that direction. So hiring a social media agency that can run the ad campaigns, be more creative with the content. And from that point, when you start attracting millennials, Acorn will have a more seamless integration into Edward Jones.
To add on that, I think of Acorn as casting a fishing net. Like, there are so many people who be locked into Acorn because they don't have to think about it. And their investments grow, and at a certain point, there is a possibility of telling them, hey, realize that your investment is reaching a certain point. Would you consider moving forward in this stage? It's something we've seen working even in education institutions and with other services. And we think that will, to be a phase that comes after 5 years using Acorn. We see that so many people get interested. Oh, I can't believe I already have this amount of money in investment. Actually, let's have that conversation. Yeah, so that's how we see it.
Well, we appreciate it. This is fantastic information, you guys.
Okay, are we allowed to ask a question? The judges?
You have 5 seconds.
Okay, so my question to you as someone who works at Edward Jones is, I know Charles Schwab has an online intelligence portfolio. Is Edward Jones ever thinking of going in that direction? Because a lot of other corporations are going into integrating fintech as an aspect or an added service offering.
Very good question. My short answer is probably not. We believe in the approach, and we have a very unique business model, right? So What comes down the pipeline, I'm not sure. What has been communicated to me is that we will never have what's called a robo-advisor, right? And so that will not happen.
Thank you.